Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings, the Honorable Mr. Reza Pahlevi, as the lecturer of the subject. My name is Arka Marlino and I'm from Class 7A. Here I want to present my presentation about my proposal. The title is Analysis of the Strategy of English Teachers in Fostering Students' Motivation in Learning English during the COVID-19 pandemic. So background of the research, because this is the COVID-19 pandemic, there are some several background that I make the research because the first is about COVID-19 pandemic. There are so many reference about this disease and there are so many effect or impact from this pandemic. And here I write about this statement and I don't want to uh, speak it one by one because it will waste the time. So the background of the research, the first is COVID-19 pandemic. The next is about teachers and the students' motivation in learning English because there are some factors that uh, affect the motivation of the students in learning English. There are so many reference from the previous research. There are some said from Siddiq and Sorbandi state that students must have high learning motivation during the implementation of learning activities. So the Lujan also said in 2020, she said that this only means that a strong negative factors limits the present motivation while other positive motives are still ready to be active. So there are so many aspects that affect students' motivation in learning English. The next is still uh, this is some information that students of Indonesia are required to be fluent in English upon their education level of completion. And many students who have a lack of motivation in learning English. And this statement strengthened by Fajrina in 2018 that in research on the motivation attempt to explore the demotivating factors and the major factors of demotivation in learning English on high motivated students. So there are two aspects. The first is about demotivating towards English, and the second aspect is distant learning caused by the pandemic. So, in this study, the author wants to know the strategies that English teachers have to foster students' learning motivation in distance learning situation during the pandemic COVID-19. The next about theoretical theories. So learning in pandemic situation has the reference from other researcher. Distance education is the experience of the educational process where the instructor or teacher and students are separated in different space and time. This is Keegan from 2002. Also, Carilla and Flores 2020 explained that online learning is depends on three pedagogical factors. The first is student-centered learning, teacher as a facilitator, and knowledge integration. The second is learning design, and the last is facilitation related to learning. So the teacher's role is very important in here because the teachers as facilitator must foster student interest in learning, one of which is by pursuing fun, providing constructive motivation. Yamin 2016. The next is there are Huang 2020 also details three main challenges in online learning during the pandemic situation. The first is teachers have limited time. Second is lack of interaction between teacher and student. The last is issues of pedagogy that requires more effort to be able to motivate online. The next theories is about lack of motivation in speaking English. According to Rao 2019, that English language has been regarded and used for global communication by a number of people from different countries around the world due to its common qualities. So, Religion 2020 strengthened the statement that not all students are capable enough nor motivated to learn a language. And a memory in 2012 conduct a research with the purpose to investigate the motivation in learn English among students in Finland's university. The findings of both previous studies and present study indicate that the motivation is a salient issue in L2 learning. There are six previous research that I wrote in this presentation. The first is the effect of online learning on students' interest in learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. The second is teaching English in the time of COVID-19 pandemic, reflection in ME no Roalaku Pekalongan Regency. The third is the role of teacher in implementation of distance learning amid the COVID-19 outbreak. The fourth is the motivation, the unseen side of vocational high school students' motivation in learning English. The fifth is students' demotivating factors in learning English. The last is what makes our students demotivate in learning. And below them is their findings about their research. The next is research gap. Previous research has discussed a lot about learning that was carried out during the COVID-19 pandemic, and also many mention about the motivation of students toward the English language. However, in this study, the author wants to find out the strategies that English teachers have in fostering the motivation, interest, and willingness of their students to learn English during the COVID-19 pandemic like now. So the research question is, what are the strategies that English teachers have in fostering motivation in learning English during the COVID-19 pandemic? The next is, how does the teacher apply their strategies in fostering motivation in learning during the COVID-19 pandemic? The next about research method. The first is research design. Here I will use a descriptive qualitative research design. There are so many reference, strengthen, or explain about this research design from Cropley 2015 state that the core property of quality research is that it examines people's real life experience, people in their own minds, in their own words. So the qualitative research design also based on grounded theories from Stars and Corbin in 1998, which helped us to study related subject. From Mr. Sugiono 2008, the uh, I'm I'm sorry. This research will explain related topic by describing the data. So according to Mr. Sugiono, that's 2008, a descriptive research is a research to determine the result of independent variable, either one or more variables without making comparisons or linking to other variables. So from the version is also said that descriptive method is a research method that is aimed to describe the present of or past phenomenon. Based on the explanation above, this research wasn't intended to test the hypothesis, but it proposed to find the information in the field and it would be described and concluded. The next is about participants and research sites. From Miles and Hoberman to 1994, there are four aspects in participant and site. The first is setting, the second is actor, the third is events, and the fourth is process. So in the study, actually I don't know where the where this research takes place. Uh, Probably I will plan this research on senior high school. So I will conduct the research and collecting the data from English teachers in senior high school or vocational high school. But in this presentation, I just wrote the uh, name of school or institute. So I want the opinion from Mr. Reza Pahlevi. Can I do this like this or not? So the author wants to involve participants from all the English teachers who do distance learning for their students. The author will ask about strategies and what they can do to grow the motivation of their students during the pandemic. The next is data collection technique. The data collection technique that I needed is the experience, confession, events, and all things related to the strategies that teachers have to motivate their students. So I will use semi-structured open-ended question for the interview and audio tape the interview and transcript the interview, like Creswell said in 2003. And the general aim in the interview was to see through the participants' eye by having them explain their experience by Partridge, Thorpe, and Edwards in 2010. So why I use this semi-structured interview? Because it strengthened by many researcher and I have many reference that semi-structured interview is suitable for finding previous unknown qualitative trends and issues, explore new areas of the research interest, and in phenomenographic studies from Rahman 2019. The research instrument, I will use a questionnaire containing open-ended question, and the use of this instrument is supported by Creswell 2003 that this interview involve unstructured and generally open-ended questions that are few in number and intended to elicit view and opinions from the participant. The next is about data analysis. I will use uh, qualitative analysis in analyzing data. Like Creswell said in 2003, there are generic steps. The first is organize and prepare the data for analysis. The second is read through all the data. The third is begin detailed analysis with a coding process. The fourth is use the coding process to generate a description of setting or people as well as categories and themes for analysis. The fifth is advance how the description and themes will be represented in the qualitative narrative. The sixth is making an interpretation or meaning of the data. The next is research ethic. This studies reveals the personal experience of the participants. This research filtered out some words that the participant did not want to be published and used pronouns to make it easier to read. This research will filter words that are less understandable and harsh so that readers are more comfortable reading this research. And there are some reference, uh, another reference, and yeah. Thank you for Mr. Reza Pahlevi, and thank you for the people who watching this video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.